Hello guys, welcome to my channel Mr. Ade Ayobet Predict. In today's video, I'll be explaining to you guys the reason why you cannot always win your sport betting. I've received so many complaints about the consistent losing streak based on these particular sport games, and in today's video I'm going to take some sports, most especially from the basketball games, as an example for the reason why playing bets can be very hard. Of recent, I actually derived a particular betting strategy on basketball straight winning and handicap on basketball games. We all know that basketball games can give you guys a very big odds when you are lucky to predict the right games. But unfortunately, about this particular game, I lost with just one ridiculous odd from football, and I almost won this particular 94 odds games, combining the first half football game over 0.5 goals and basketball home win, away win, or handicap. And if you look at this game very well, either you predict it as double chance or you predict it as a straight win, you would have lost the game. So I was probably thinking probably if predicting over first half 0.5 goals would really help. So now, if you are to look at this particular basketball tips also, you will notice that there are some big odds match from it, and I think it is easy to actually generate big odds from basketball. But don't be tempted by these things that you guys are seeing. Maybe you are seeing consistent winning in basketball games, maybe you derived a particular betting strategy and you think it will be winning consistently. Anyway, I will put you guys through the process of how I'm able to conveniently predict basketball games straight winning. If you look at that game very well, I went on to predict this particular three games again, like to play them on a separate way, and they came out well. And I eventually realized that this thing cannot be working forever, and that's why you need to be very careful when it comes to playing bets on sport games. So right now, I will not like to waste much of our time. I would like to put you guys through the process of how I always predict my basketball straight winning games. So I want you guys to pay very good close attention to these particular details in this particular video. So now I'm going to take one of this particular match as an example for predicting basketball straight winning. And the reason why you need to be very careful when it comes to predicting games, I've made some strategy on so many sport games, most especially in football and basketball, and I discovered that in football there's no way you can do it. If you are going to win, you will win, and if you are going to lose, you will lose. But there are some aspects that you can actually explore that it is very safe. For example, the home team over 0.5 goals, but unfortunately it is very hard for you to find games using that particular strategy of home team over 0.5 games. And if you are winning consistently using that particular strategy, still yet you will get tired of it. So without wasting much of our time, I'm going to use this particular game as an example. If you look at it very well, you can see that in basketball things can be very crazy sometimes. If you look at the odd given to the home team, 1.02 odd that the home team should win, even if they make provision for the handicap market for the home team, I'm sure it will not be available because of this very ridiculous odd. And let's assume they even provide the handicap for the home team right now, and they are giving us the handicap of probably +3 or +2. You will still lose this particular game. And why is because you cannot predict accurately 100% predict basketball games like that. But sometimes it works, and don't when it works, don't believe that you've gotten the pattern or you've gotten the most accurate betting strategy that you will start putting all your life investment on bet. So you have to be very careful. So now let me put you guys through the process of how I predict my games, and the reason why I think the bookmakers are very right to allocate this kind of odds for this particular home team games. So now if you are to look into the head to head of the basketball games that you want to play, whenever you want to predict basketball games, most times I always make use of the last 5 games of the home team and the away team, And when it comes to predicting games, there are two ways. And when it comes to basketball, most especially, there are some times when you predict over games, and there's sometimes when you predict under games. And in some situations, you can experience that teams that you are expecting to play something around maybe over 180, over 170, over 160, they are playing something like under 130. It happens very well. I think it is based on the pace and the speed of how they score points in that particular game. And there are some situations whereby you are going to be expecting maybe under 150 or under 140 in the basketball games, and the match will eventually end up in probably over 200. It happens like that. So that's why basketball sometimes can be unpredictable in any market that you go for. But I just decided to start going for the straight winning, and I discovered that even though you are going for this particular straight winning, to some extent, the the unexpected can turn the game around. So this is the process I use in predicting my basketball straight winning, and the reason why I think the odd allocated to this particular game is accurate. Now, if you are to look at the last 5 games of the home team, this particular team, if you are to look at it, you should be concerned about the total points that they had in that particular game. So I always look into 2 points. That is, if both teams are efficient offensively and inefficient defensively. And also I look into the aspect of if both teams are inefficient offensively and defensively. I believe you guys got the point right. If the first point is that if both teams are efficient, like they let's assume that they haven't played this particular game. Let's assume that, okay, they perform very well, and when it comes to scoring points, they really perform very well. And in their defensive aspect, they are very loose, like they are conceding. As they are scoring points, they are also conceding points. In this kind of situation, there is high probability of high points coming out from that game, and that's always happen very well in basketball. And there are some situations whereby the both team will try to reserve, like to protect their nets, so their defense will be very very tight, and it will be very very difficult to score points in that particular game. So these are the 2 points that you need to look into when it comes to predicting basketball game. So when it comes to predicting straight winning, who to win a basketball game, if you look at the last previous games very well, you can notice that almost in the last 6 games, it has always been the home team. The home team seems to be a very very strong team. And if you look into the last 6 games that the home team has been winning, there is always this kind of a large gap between them. If you look at this, there is a gap between it, and the last 2 games, 111 to 80. And looking at this, they play 73 and 91. So this is why I said in basketball, sometimes when you said you want to predict a basketball game as over or under, it is very very difficult. Imagine a team playing you something around 190, and they are playing something around 130. You can see that there is no consistency in basketball games sometimes. Now, when we are talking about predicting who to win, this particular dominant team has always been winning with a very large gap. For me, like without even doing the analysis, I'm expecting the home team to win this particular game. But this is actually the process I use for predicting my basketball home game. So if we are to look into the last 5 games of the home team, let's say we look at the last 5 games of the home team, and we look at it from the perspective of if both teams are strong, like strong offensively and weak defensively, we are going to look into the highest point they scored in the last 5 games. Now, yeah, the home team scored 76 points and they scored 81 points here, and there they score 80 points, and here they score 89 points, and in this place they've scored 79 points. So the highest point among all these points that I'm seeing actually is 89 points that they scored against this particular opponent. Now, let's say we have 89 points. The home team had 89 points as the highest point in their last 5 games while playing against other team. Moving on to the last previous games of the away team. Alright, so moving on to the last previous games of the away team. Look at this team that eventually beat this particular team we are talking about. In their last 5 games, All right, they scored 61 points here, as you guys can see it. Okay, they scored 61 points here. They scored 78 points here. They scored 63 points here. They scored 64 points here, and they scored 59 points here. This shows that this particular away team does not always score points very well. They are very, very poor when it comes to winning games, scoring points, and everything like that. And the highest points they had in their last 5 games against other opponents, I think, even if you check the last 6 games, they even scored 48 points here. To shows that this particular away team is a very, very worst team when it comes to scoring points. Okay, now the biggest point in the last 5 games that I'm seeing right now happens to be 78. And don't forget, the highest point that the home team had in their last previous games against other opponents happens to be 89, right? Okay, so 89 to 78, it is obvious that the home team actually had the highest points scored against other opponents. Now you have to look into it from the perspective of, if both teams are efficient defensively, the ability to restrict their opponent to a certain point. Now we are going to look into the games that whereby these particular teams that we are looking into, they were able to restrict their opponent to a smallest point. Now if you look at the home team in their last 5 games, we already conclude that offensively the home team seems to be better. And let us look at the defensive aspect. Now looking at the defensive aspect, you can see that in this particular game, the home team restricted their opponent into 90 points. Okay, and in this particular game they restricted their opponent into 85 points. In this place they restricted them into 70 points, and here they restricted them into 93 points, and here they were able to restrict them into 86 points. And the smallest point that they were able to acquire, like they were able to restrict their opponent to, happens to be 70, as you guys are seeing here, 70 points. Now moving on to the away team, let's see the smallest point that the away team were able to restrict their opponents into. Alright, so in this place they were able to restrict their opponents into 75 points, and here they were able to restrict them into 93 points, and in this place they restricted them into 100 points, and here they restricted them into 98 points, and in this place they restricted them into 88 points. And the smallest point that they were able to to restrict their opponents into happens to be 75 points. You can see that this particular point of 75 is even small compared to that of the home team. And unfortunately, checking the last previous games against each other, you can see that the home team happens to be the most favorite to win this particular game, with the distance and the gap that they've always been using to win their games. And the odd allocation by the bookmakers is not really bad, but unfortunately the game ended up as 80 to 87 for the away team, which has the odd of 12.50 odds winning the game. It happens very, 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 very well in a football game also. So what I just showed you guys right now, I want you guys to observe the previous games that they've played in basketball games and see how accurate it is. But sometimes you will just see some games that it will end up in a way that you are not even expecting at all. These particular situations of losing games that are not expected, there are some games that naturally they are not expected to go the other way around. It happens very well in football also, because looking into the last previous days games for Sporting, if you guys play the game very well, you'll be surprised to experience this particular result whereby they lost by 1-0. And looking at the odd allocated to them by the bookmakers, you'll be surprised like why. And looking at the odd for the away team, and the same thing goes with Barcelona. The same thing goes with Barcelona, and they lost against a team that were given an odd of 16 points or 20 points odd. It happens very well, but there are ways of that you can even still escape these particular issues of football. But when it comes to basketball, it is very, very difficult for you to escape it, because when we are talking about football aspects, in a way to escape that one aspect, you can actually employ handicap betting strategies to hit. You can apply handicap betting strategy or the home or away betting strategy to that particular situations. For example, in the situations of this particular Sporting and Santa Clara, home or away was used in that particular ticket. And in these situations of Barcelona and Las Palmas, handicap tips can be used on that. But in basketball, it is very very hard to escape that. And guys, don't let me deceive you guys, even though to some extent it can be very very difficult with football also, to escape this particular issue of losing your bet. Because if you look into some games, there are some things that will happen in a game that you are not even expecting in a normal stores. Because if you look into this particular game very well, even though the away team seems to be leading on the league table, but looking into the form, looking into the stats, the home team seems to be to win this particular game or draw. But if you look into that particular match very well, I think the away team actually had three penalty in that particular game, and there's nothing the home team can do about that. And looking at the next game here also, if you check the stats very well and if you know how to do your analysis on sports, most especially on football, you will notice that the away team is supposed to win this particular game, Celta Vigo. They were expected, they have the high probability of winning this particular game. If not win, they should draw the game, and unfortunately they lost the game by 3 goals to 1, even though the handicap of 1.5, like the Asia handicap of 1.5, which is equivalent to handicap of away 2 goals, is not enough to save this particular ticket. And things like this always happen very well in sport games, and you will keep burning your money on these particular things. So therefore, I would just advise you guys to just make sure that whenever you want to play your games, make sure you are playing with money that you can afford to lose. And in case you have any opinion or suggestion, please kindly drop it in the comment section, because if you have anything that we can do, maybe you have an advice on when on this particular issues of sport betting, you can drop it in the comment section. It is not like we don't have some strategies that are really working, but to make use of it can be very hard. And I notice that people are not always satisfied with uh, playing small odds, because when we're talking about, there's a particular strategy I do use, but it can be very very stressful, and that is home team over 0.5 goals. It can be very stressful to find, and when you find it, you may not even get up to 2 odd. Maybe probably you are getting 1.5 odd, 1.6 odd, 1.40 odd every day, and you'll be winning consistently. But if it will get to a point whereby you are going to win this particular 1.4 odd, 1.5 odd, maybe you won it 6 days consecutively, and maybe on the 7th day, 8th day, you couldn't find any games to play on, you'll be forced or tempted to play games on games that you are not expected to bet on. And most especially, I've dealt with people that have thought with home team over 0.5, that it got to some extent they were tired of winning small odds. They were like open, like they just want this particular, they are getting this particular feelings of betting on big odds. And in sport betting, I realized that consistency about this particular thing is not always working out well. Sometimes you derive a strategy, you keep winning, and it goes to some point you start losing. It happens very well in sport games, because sport games is always dynamic. It changes, teams improve, they lose form, they gain form, and so many things happens around sport games. So guys, in case you be betting on games anytime, make sure that you bet responsibly. And if you have any opinion regarding to this particular content, please kindly drop it in the comment section. All advice are welcome. See you guys in the next video. Bye.